Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES, that is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be with you. So what are we going to talk about today? First of all, before I start talking, I want to tell you, we're doing this where we're actually going live on Facebook as well as live on Blog Talk Radio and, of course, streaming elsewhere. So what I'd like to ask you to do, if you want to be on the show, you're live on the show where people hear you all over the place, give us a call at 646-929-2495. Again, that number is 646-929-2495. In preparing, actually, the reality is I didn't prepare that much for the program because there was so much happening throughout the week. There was not going to be a problem in finding topics to discuss. And more than that, I really want to hear from a whole lot of people. There's a whole lot happening in the country this time, actually during this election, but it's even deeper given all the socioeconomic problems that's going around in the world. So what I'd like to ask you to do is to please make some comments. If you're listening to this on Facebook, make some comments. If you have the wherewithal to give us a call, call us as well. The telephone number is 646-929-2495, and let's get busy with the show. Now, what are we going to talk about today? Brexit. Anybody who knows what Brexit is, or everybody likely should know what Brexit is. Brexit is that what the British folk voted on 2 days ago on Thursday to decide whether they were going to be leaving the European Union or not. Most of the punditry believe, the establishment, including the establishment here in the United States, believe that somehow this would never happen. Why would these people in the Great Britain decide to leave the European Union? After all, doesn't it give them a whole lot of benefits by being able to travel without passports, by being able to own property, by being able to do a whole lot of things in all these other places within Europe that one would want to do? Why would they do it? Well, there's something going on in the world, and it's also going on here in the United States. And until all of us realize it, I think we're in for a whole lot of detriment. And I shouldn't just say in for a whole lot of detriment, but we're in for a crude wake-up call. And that crude wake-up call in America is actually called Donald Trump. I know a whole lot of people are tired of hearing the Donald Trump. I know a lot of people think that, Donald Trump is just a joke and it can't happen. Hillary Clinton will beat him or somebody else will beat him. But somehow the American people will never elect this person like Donald Trump. Folks, I'm here to tell you, there's something going on in the world. And it's not only here in the United States where we see Trump in the 40s. It's all over the world. And it's something that we better we better listen to, because we need to do this before it is too late. Again, folks, this is a call-in show. Last week was the first time, or a couple weeks ago was the first time that we did the show live on Facebook as well as Blog Talk Radio and a few other channels. So give us a call, please, 646-929-2495. Again, that number is 646-929-2495. We'll get you on air as soon as you push that number one after you call us and tell us you want to make your point. You want to make a point about the Brexit, about Donald Trump, or about anything else that you may want to talk about. These are serious times, and we want to use this medium to actually give people the opportunity to talk, to give other people the opportunity to come in. Now, before I go, I just want to say one quick thing. Last week, we didn't have a call. We didn't have a show last week because I was in San Antonio, Texas, with the Democratic Convention. I was honored to be elected in the Senate District 4 as one of Bernie Sanders' delegates. So I am a Bernie Sanders delegate going to Philadelphia on sometime in July, whenever that is, to represent my district, to represent my state, to represent my country as a part of the Texas delegation for Bernie Sanders. We're going to be going out there, of course, to not only to celebrate a new movement, because we're going to be getting together with all the Bernie Sanders folks, not only in Texas, but all the Bernie Sanders folks from all over the country, where we're going to break bread, where we're going to talk things, and where we're going to decide how does the movement continue. And more so than ever, we can actually see the necessity for having a movement of this type. But anyhow, like I said, I got elected to be one of the delegates for Bernie Sanders, and we're going to be marching on with the movement. For all those people that are watching that are Bernie Sanders supporters or Hillary Clinton supporters or even Trump supporters, I would love to hear from you. This is a civil show. This is a show where we discuss facts. This is a show where we decide how. Actually, this is a show where we give you, the listener, the ability to be a part of something, the ability to take control, the ability to say, I am going to have a voice in this body politic. Normally at this time, I would play something like this, and I want to let you hear this. Normally, at this time of the game, I do this, and I say, you hear this little...
It's time for the weekly blog post.
But I had so many blog posts this morning when I woke up. I said, what is going to be the blog post that I'm going to discuss today? And the reality is I couldn't decide which would be the blog post of the week for Politics Done Right on Coffee Party Radio. So I decided to just leave it wide open for calls and save you the 6 or 7 minutes of me going over this blog. So before, again, I'd like to invite all of you to give us a call, 646-929-2495. Be a part of the revolution. I see I have a caller up, my good friend from San Antonio. How are you doing, my friend? Come on in. John.
Good afternoon, Egberto. How you doing?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Great.
What are your thoughts, my friend? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm very sad about the Brexit vote and all of the pain that's going to be caused by it. And It's also, I think that people, don't really, have an understanding of, the situation. There were a lot of people who regretted their votes, once it actually passed, and that's really surprising to see. They just didn't think it was passed, and it would be a protest vote, and
right.
That didn't happen. And so, I do disagree. I mean, there are obviously some elements of
right.
the Trump relationship. I mean, the fact is, the leader was a far right person, but there were a lot of people that were Labor Party voters who voted for this, and even people in the further left. Because this is also to a degree a reaction to austerity. I think it was a wrong reaction.
Right.
But it was a reaction to austerity. Of course, the British voters, elected Cameron, who put austerity in place, and so it's kind of a strange contradiction, but it's really really sad. But as far as Trump and the relationship between the vote and Trump, I don't think that this is a foreshadowing of what's going to come, just because, you look at the data, you look at the numbers, and Trump is not gaining in any way at all. And that I don't like national polls at all, and I don't like referring to national polls because national polls are totally meaningless. They don't reflect how a president is actually elected, and it's really, to me it's very, I know this has always been this way historically, that people refer to national polls, journalists refer to them, even like really super intelligent liberal bloggers refer to them, because they're simple. It's easy to just say, Clinton's up by 6, as opposed to, Clinton is actually up by about 25 to 30 if you look at the actual electoral college. So Obama won 332, beat Romney 332 to 205. The two states that Clinton is leading right now are in Kansas and with 6 electoral votes, and Arizona with 11. Right now, Trump's not winning any of the states that Obama carried. And so, this is a much, much larger lead than people concede. And I know we're kind of on the opposite ends here, because you have a lot of fear that Trump could possibly win. And I'm not saying he couldn't win.
Let me ask you to hold 1 second there and tell you what my real fear is, okay? My real fear is that with Trump having such a lousy week, if you will, that he is still doing so well. Okay. In other words, I know your numbers are irrefutable. The numbers that you're given are irrefutable. There's no doubt about that. Your numbers are irrefutable. However, my concern is with Trump doing this. I mean, with it being this bad. Okay. You would think that somehow it would be, his numbers would have tanked so much more. And what my fear is that we don't, we take it for granted. We take it for granted that somehow things will get better. And that is my concern.
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, he's not winning any of the Obama states, and so the lead is actually about 30 points in the electoral college, as opposed to 5 points. I mean, and this is the same thing with the election. A lot of the skewed polls, people from the Republicans said the same thing. Obama, he only won by 4 points. Well, actually, he won by 22 points in the Electoral College. And so the Electoral College is the only thing that matters, and there are built-in demographic advantages. I mean, there are 19 states that the Democrats have held since 1992. They've won every election, and those numbers actually add up to 242 electoral votes. All you need is 270 to win. And so, I understand the fear, and I understand the, I guess as far as if you're going to say how can Trump win, the easiest way he can win is to win Florida, win Pennsylvania, and win Ohio, and he will win the election. Okay, right. But how can he do that? Can he actually do that? In the latest Quinnipiac poll, Clinton was winning by 8 in Florida. And I think that the reason this jumped up so high is because of all of the things that he said about Judge Coriel, and the Hispanics. Really, I mean, the numbers are just outrageous. How few Hispanics are going to vote for Trump, and there are a lot of Hispanics in Florida. As far as Pennsylvania. In 2002 exit polls, 45% of people said that they voted for Obama, the Democrat, or identified themselves as Democrats, rather than not voted for Obama, but identified themselves as Democrats. In this Quinnipiac poll, they only had, I think it was 37% who identified as Democrats. So that's a -7. That's a huge amount. And you can't really, when you have such differentiation of numbers, you can't really take that very seriously, because it's just not, you have to get closer to what is actually reality. And Quinnipiac polling has always been off. They've always favored Republicans. I mean, the easiest way to check this is to look at the exit polls from 2012. and compare them to the numbers that the people that they poll. And if they're way off, there's something seriously wrong. So I see your point, but I'm not really concerned at all. I mean, yes, Democrats should work really hard, and I know that's hard for people who supported Sanders because they don't really necessarily believe in her platform, as much as the Sanders platform, and they feel a lot of concerns, like I do, and I'm sure you do, about a Clinton presidency. But given the choice, it wasn't news that Sanders said that, but they acted like it was news, saying that he would support Clinton. And he said that many times before. So I'm glad that the Sanders movement is continuing. I'm glad that he's going to support a lot of people. I'm hoping Zephyr Teachout is going to win in the 19th district. Tim Canova is going to win, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and that this movement, the new Congress 2018, is going to be very successful.
I hope so as well. But I tell you what I think we have to do is start. Let me tell you what I don't want to do. I don't want us to get this particular what's the word? A complacency that I'm seeing right now. I am seeing a complacency that is very dangerous. And you said that I'm fearful. The truth of the matter is, yes, I am fearful. And the reason I'm fearful is because, again, if you look at Brexit, it's not the majority of people that really wanted Brexit. It's the majority of people who voted who wanted Brexit. You get my point?
Well, what was the percentage of voting? Was it like 80%? That's pretty high.
70, I think it was 73% or something like that.
Okay, that's good. That's still high.
Now that is still good. That is still good, right? That is actually great. But again, we could only wish to have that, right?
Yeah.
We could only wish to have that. But let me keep you hot and bring in 620. 620, come on in. How are you doing today?
Okay. Oh, this is Jack Golding again.
Hey, Jack, how are you doing?
Okay, now, fine. I always felt that Trump was a phony from day one. Mm-hmm. I knew it for 5 years when he was questioning Obama's, legitimacy because he claims he was born in Kenya.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that goes back to the birther movement. And I have to agree with you that we're too complacent that he might sneak in and win. It's possible. It's a possibility, but I have a feeling though that if people have if there's a high turnout, he will win no more than say 10 states.
Yeah, and those would be the very red states that will absolutely not pull the trigger for it.
Utah is against him. Utah, to take Utah, that's about almost as red as you can get. And you say Kansas, what's his name was saying that it's leading in Kansas. Clinton, that Hillary's leading in Kansas. That's a good sign.
Yes, it is.
I wonder if he's over Trump in Kansas, because that's my state.
Yes, I understand.
I know where he gets that information.
Absolutely, I understand that.
Yeah.
But Jack, let me put you on hold 1 second. I have another caller that's in as well, so I'll come back to you, Jack. Okay, I think this may be a call in from Skype. Make your point, my friend. What's your name?
Okay, name's Delwar. I'm calling from the United Kingdom in England.
Okay.
Just heard some of the stuff. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Oh, please, thank you for calling in. And before, are you leave or you stay?
Right, I'll tell you something. I chose not to contract because if you contracted either way, the Roman Jesuit cult still won. And I'm going to explain myself. So the people in this country seem to think that they've got the power to change things, and they actually haven't, because basically the City of London Corporation is owned by the Roman Jesuit cult, who are running this whole planet through the Roman Cure, including the United States Corporation over there. All these countries keep classing themselves as real countries. They're not. They've all got central banks, they've all got governments that are democracies, and they're all owned by the Roman Jesuit cult under colonialism. So the issue with the people over here is that they think that their vote makes a difference. It actually doesn't, because they're going to do what they're going to do anyway, these people at the top. They do what they want. What they do need from us is for us to contract, to consent, to enter the contract, for us to agree to be governed over. We're talking about universal law here. And so that's where the real issue is. If you look to any war that's gone on, no matter where it's happened on the planet, the one thing that's always happened is there's always been, even when the world wars were on, there was always governments being voted in. They always need the consent and the contract of the people. And the only thing that was interested in these so-called top people, the only things they were interested in was the fact that the British got out and contracted and agreed to be ruled over and totally governed over by these stupid idiots. Now, funnily enough, the Queen in this country is not actually on the throne. She's been, it's been since 1213, but they had some recent altercations, I think it was about 1912, where the Queen was totally suppressed in here, and she's been totally subordinate. And she's actually the Dame Hospitaller for the Knights of Malta. So she's owned by the Roman Jesuit cult, and she does as she's told. And everybody's got to follow the narrative. Now, if people chose to vote into the EU, they would go under the ECB, which is the European Central Bank, under Van Rompuy, who's the Jesuit. So the Jesuits win. If you agree to go under Warminster or Westminster, which is over here in London, okay, which is a city corporation that runs the whole of this country, and it's only the square round of London, and it's running everybody else as a slave, then you're still going under the Roman Jesuit, under the Banco di Spirito, in the Inner Temple, and the British Bar Association, which is the British Accreditation Registry. So you're under that same beast, no matter whether you voted in or out. So my thing was, I thought, well, I'm not going to contract either way. I'm not going to contract with them. That's the best way not to do it. Malcolm X said it best. It doesn't work for you. Leave it alone. These people are megalomaniacs. They're only in it for their own self-preservation. They're not in it for the people. Now, I've got a document where Cameron was talking about the referendum. This was a little while before. Now, this document sets out what he wanted out of the referendum. And the one thing he didn't talk about was nothing to do with the British people. But what he did talk about was the City of London Corporation. As soon as I read certain things, I knew straight away that these people have got their own invested interests, and they're only bothered about themselves. So as far as and by the way, David Cameron is he's got a blood oath. He's part of the Knights Garter over here, which is makes him a high-level Freemason, which puts him under the Ugile Lodge, which puts him under the Ecclesia Lodge, back into the Peter Lodge, all under the Vatican, under the Roman Jesuit cult. So they've all got alliances like Obama, like Joe Biden, who changed at Georgetown University. He's also a Jesuit. They're all controlled. So the whole thing is controlled opposition, no matter which side you vote. So the big thing is the whole illusion and distraction itself that people are not seeing. And so what's happening is that the Leave campaign over here was very biased against immigration. So it was a very bloody campaign over here that was fighting. So there was all we've been banging on about for the last 2 or 3 weeks consistently is immigration. Big booty man causing fear.
Let me stop you for a second. What is your name?
Delroy.
Delroy. What group are you with? I'm curious, because a lot of what you mentioned, I don't want to call it the conspiracies, because in reality there is some. I won't go there, but I'm trying to figure out what group are you representing within your country, within Great Britain, as far as you with, and secondly, what is the solution as you see it?
Right, brilliant questions, both brilliant questions. I, like you, I was totally asleep maybe about 6-7 years ago, and I've never actually voted, but I always thought the government was on the side of the people. I thought they were here to help us. But in reality, I was seeing the politicians using expenses, taking taxpayers' money. There was always kind of constant scandals going on within government. I was like, well, how can these people represent us when they're constantly doing things wrong and they're being totally incompetent? So my thing is, I'm not a part of a group necessarily, but what I realized is something was, like you in the United States Corporation, you realize, hang on a minute, something's fundamentally wrong going on. This is not right. The way the whole thing's being run is totally wrong. We know that we're supposed to be unified as a people. It's supposed to be people loving one another, but it's total madness out here. So what you look in reality in terms of what we do, in terms of what the television's telling you, are two different things. So I began to question it, and I came to the conclusion that the whole thing is being totally run by certain groups of people, some of them I've mentioned earlier on, and that they're only interested in making sure that we're the slave class, and that they make sure that they make their money and they keep themselves at the top and they keep us as slaves, and that's it. It's not about justice. It's about getting money off trusts and bonds and keeping everybody else suppressed and enslaved and being a good slave and everybody doing as they're told. And so I didn't decide to join any sort of group. There's a certain amount of people that I talk to. We all know what's going on. We haven't formed a group as such, but what we're realizing is, how do we actually stop the beast from causing us some kind of harm? So what we've been doing is, it's all about, we realize they're accessing bonds off these citrus trusts. So what we're realizing is the one thing we can do to slow them down from at least cause us harm is not contract with them. So I've been minimizing my contracts with the government, and they can't tell me, in instance, what to do. So they say, if you vote, we're going to fine you £1,000. So I said to them, well, no, I'm not going to contract with you, so therefore they can't force me to do something I don't want to do. So I've just been refusing to contract, and that's what's slowing them down at the moment. But you're going to say something.
Delroy, look, I really appreciate your input. Now, I wanted to ask something, because a lot of times here in the United States, we are insular, and we don't see a whole lot of things that are occurring overseas, because as something that you mentioned, our media, again, really has no interest in us knowing too much about other places. People like ourselves and the callers to this show, we keep abreast of what's going on internationally, which in this new world does matter. How did the Bernie Sanders movement come across in Great Britain, in the United Kingdom?
Now, this is interesting. Okay, what the media, even though it's television and they tell you what they want you to know, what's been interesting, they have been allowing us to some degree over here. Although the referendum's been absolutely bombarded on everybody for probably about the past 3 or 4 months, the U.S. general election that's coming up, Trump has been covered, and so is Hillary Clinton. So they are covering it, but they are covering Bernie Sanders, but they're not giving it too much importance. So it's being covered, but not heavily. I look at it more myself in terms of how the corporates work, in terms of what you're on about. But they are covering it over here, and people are aware of it. And the only thing that people tend to be bothered about over here is who's going to get in office, to see how they're going to work closely with, obviously, David Cameron, or it won't be David Cameron, it's going to be a new leader.
Or whoever becomes the new leader of Great Britain. Now, as far as that is concerned, now, again, from your perspective now, I think if I understood what you said in the beginning of the conversation, you didn't vote in this election at all, because as far as you're concerned, that election as well was rigged. It didn't really matter. Did I understand you correctly?
You did get me correct. Yeah, if you vote either side, those sort of powers that be, for instance, Roman Jesuit cult, they win either side. They don't care who you vote for. They just want you to contract. Right.
So you're saying you were just a pawn, a cog, to decide which one of the masters you would serve, pretty much.
Yes, and it's the same master, it's just in different clothes. Yes.
Great. Let me ask. I'd like to ask John to comment on what he just heard.
Well, he sounds like a bigot. I mean, he sounds like a racist. I mean, he said Jesuit cult at least 10 times. If you would have been saying, the saying the Jewish cult, you'd have probably stopped the call within 30 seconds. But the fact that he's saying the Jesuit cult makes it a little bit more acceptable, but it's just as racist. What he's saying is absolutely absurd. I mean, yes, the Catholic Church has a certain amount of power in a lot of the world. There's no doubt about that. But they, and I was raised a Catholic. I'm an agnostic now. But I mean, to say that the church and the Jesuits are running everything in the world is absurd. I mean, it's racist to the extreme. And, the fact that he says he's not voting also means that is also an absurd statement. I mean, you're saying that if nobody would have voted for FDR in 1932, 36, 40, and 44, this country would be the same as it was. Everything depends on your vote, and people should condemn racism. Whoever says it should be condemned, and I just strongly disagree with the caller. Go out, exercise your vote. That's the only way you have power, and you should accept all people. People should be criticized if they do things wrong, and definitely the Catholic Church has done a lot of things that are wrong, especially with the assaults and the rapes of the young men by the priest. That hasn't been that hasn't been really addressed enough. But the Catholic Church has also done a lot of good things, and Pope Francis is talking about social justice. He's talking about income inequality. These are issues that should be raised, and a lot of Catholics are condemning him because he's being too political. I praise him. I think he's done a great job. These are issues that need to be addressed. And
maybe, John, maybe you heard something that I didn't hear. So I'll ask the caller to clarify. On one thing I think I need to get across with, I think we should get some clarification. One can be you said that what the Delroy said was pretty much racist. Is that what you said? But I think it's really not racist we want to talk about. It's bigotry. Am I correct?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's bigotry towards Catholics is what it is. He's extremely anti-Catholic.
Right. And my question to Delroy, are you an anti-Catholic person?
No, and can't be racist because I'm melanated. Racism's a false construct. Again, race is the human species. Not the that's problem with the Bible Code 1724 was instituted by the church.
Yeah, John corrected himself on that. John corrected himself on that. Where I was trying to get to is to John, you were actually coming across as someone who was to put it bluntly a bigot towards Catholics, and that's what I was trying to get, and I was trying to get if that sentiment was something that was strong in Great Britain or not.
Right, all right, I'm with you now. Okay, no, it's I've had to be honest with you, I didn't even know about the Roman Jesuit cult until about 7-8 years ago. To be honest with you, I thought everybody was doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's only when I started to get into this stuff and research what the Roman Jesuit cult have done, and it's not just them. He is right about what he referred to as the Jews. I don't call them Jews because there's no state of you can't find Jew land on the map. It's they call themselves Isis Ranel, which is Israel. But I can't get into that right now. He is right. There is aspects of this that the Ashkenazi Khazarians, as I refer to them, people call them Juzakam Ashkenazi Khazarians, who are also working closely with the P2 Lodge with the Jesuits. They're also part of it as well. I haven't mentioned them specifically, but they are part of it as well. So it's not just. But the thing is, they're all under the Curia. So they come under that same corporation. So they're all working together. It's many factions. There's many factions, but the biggest one I found in terms of who's got overall control is the Jesuit Church. But there's many factions to it.
Okay, Delroy, let me just say one thing, okay? Because for all the things that you're speaking about, I'm oblivious to much of what you've said. Now, there's one thing that I do want to say, and that is to mimic what John said. When John says, no matter what, it is important. It is a fact that folks need to vote. But secondly, and this is something that we need to talk about, what have you as individuals done yourselves to actually be a part of the body politic? In other words, it's easy for us to come out here and say all these things that are happening within our respective countries, all the bad things that these politicians are doing. When are we going to say we are going to ourselves become the politicians? We ourselves are going to become the activists, because that is what it takes, won't you say, John?
Yeah, I mean, instead of scapegoating various religions, that's what he's doing. He's doing just what Trump does. Instead of races, he's scapegoating religions. If you want to look at the real problem, The problem is the worship of money and the being overly greedy, and that doesn't necessarily go with religion. That encompasses all religions, and it also encompasses atheists and agnostics. This is the biggest problem.
That is what John has just said there is very important. We shouldn't be looking at the problem through the eyes of religion, race, culture, or anything. We need to be looking at what the problem really is. And the real problem is what it has always been, the greed of a few, and not of most, the greed of a few. And if we and everything else, and Delroy, this is something for you to take back to your countrymen as well. Everything else are smoke screens. It really is. I know you've done all this research and put out these. One always has to ask where the research comes from. Trump has a whole dossier of research himself that a lot of people here in the United States are going to believe. And by the way, John, that is the reason why I am so worried. A lot of people are going to believe these things because a lot of it actually seems like reality. What we really have to look at is the core of the problem. And the core of the problem is the economic system. The core of the problem is the social justice system. All these are issues that we have to look at. All of these are issues that many of us fear will be problematic if they're in our country, if there is a Trump president. In the case of Europe, falling out of the European Union, I tell you, the only good that I saw come out of the union is that of the vote that occurred in the UK was that somehow it seemed like, in as much as they did it on the wrong pretenses as I would claim, is that the people went against what the plutocracy wanted. That's the only. I mean, if you looked at what I wrote on Facebook, it's sort of, my thoughts are sort of macabre, right? Because in my personal opinion, they shouldn't have left. However, it was interesting that in effect they turned the screws on the plutocracy. And you say, John?
No, I don't think so. Because, I mean, as bad as Cameron is, we're probably going to get somebody that's even farther right, Boris Johnson.
No doubt.
And so, I mean, they're not, people on the far right, they're not, anti-plutocratic. They're more plutocratic. Because the people in the center right, they actually, listen to the people slightly more, and they try to be, more, appealing. They don't try to be extreme. And so, if the people can actually move the center right, to the center, to where if you're far right and it's just all about ideology, they're not going to move. They're just not either not going to get elected or they're going to continue in power. And so, yeah, this is really bad. Well, what I will say though is that as far as the EU currency, I agree with you. You've written, blogs throughout the years about what's happened in Greece, about what's happened in Spain, about, Germany and the austerity that they've placed on these countries, and that is a real shame that they've placed on Italy. And, I love the European culture, and, I love their political history, post-World War II with all the socialist governments, especially the Scandinavian countries.
Oh yeah,
but,
absolutely.
What now, the austerity has been ruling, and that's been absolutely awful for just about everybody in Europe, and they don't seem to recognize it. And it's just really, really sad. And so, as far as a currency, I think that, that wouldn't bother me as much. This is more about, trading and having, different contracts, and it has to deal with security. But I think Britain actually made a good decision to not be on the EU, as a currency and to stay on the pound.
Well,
actually,
the wrong way getting off from Lita, right? They found out that because they were so tied to because they actually are using the EU currency, it meant that they couldn't devalue for their own local needs. They needed to have been able to devalue their currency so that their folks wouldn't feel the local pain of having to run under the euro. So, I mean, yeah, those are serious issues. Now, again, going back to the topic at hand, what we're talking about, and before I forget, folks that are listening on Facebook and on Blog Talk Radio, the telephone number is 646-929-2495. Again, that number is 646-929-2495. Of course, if you're overseas, like Delroy is overseas, you could also use Skype if you don't want to have those charges to give us a call. But most calls these days, international or local, are generally free. So join the conversation, 646-929-2495. My thoughts here on Donald Trump is as follows, and this is where I differ slightly from my good friend John here, and that specifically has to do with, I believe that Trump, given the terrible week that Trump had, it's still surprising. I find it extremely surprising that Trump is not as his poll numbers has not just simply cratered completely. I just find that unbelievable. John?
Well, I mean, I just think that, again, I mean, I hate to say the same thing, but I mean, I think he's consistently been 25 points down if you look at the Electoral College. As far as what there was a Zogby poll as far as what our friend from Kansas was saying, Jack. The Zogby poll, June 4th through 6th, Clinton's up by 7 in Kansas.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, the question is, it's always been this way ever since he became the nominee. Which states that voted for Obama twice are going to turn around and voted for our first African American president? They're going to turn around and vote for a racist, and I just don't see it. I mean, maybe Ohio, maybe Pennsylvania, maybe Iowa and New Hampshire, possibly Michigan, but that's not enough. That's not enough to overcome the votes. And if he can't hold Arizona with the Latinos voting against him, he can't hold Kansas, he can't hold Georgia. It could. I just think it's more leaning towards a total landslide, heading towards 400 electoral votes than it is going to be close.
So you really believe that?
I do. I think that the Hispanic vote is going to be tremendous in Arizona. I think it's going to be tremendous in Florida. The other states worry me a little bit, like I said, in especially Ohio. But I mean, he still hasn't had a lead in a long time, since he became the nominee.
Right.
And Gary Johnson is going to take away more votes from him than Jill Stein is going to take away from Hillary Clinton. So he's going to lose votes that way also.
I really hope that you're right. I hope that I'm completely wrong in the fears that I have. I just know not that I know. I simply feel that we are currently in an interesting time where people are doing so badly, and when I say badly, I'm talking in relative terms, and that the people who are doing badly are some of those who never found themselves in this place before. These are all post-baby boom people. And my concern again is that somehow they will just throw their hands up in the air and say, we've been with the status quo, whether Republican or Democrat, and look at Trump as they know all his flaws. They know that he's, just wanting somebody to shake up the system. And the problem is you never know when people are just going to throw up their hands and say, let's go ahead and just try this. Everything else has failed. And that is my concern. I'm not looking at, we can say, let's look at the polls, right? The polls for Brexit had, the polls were wrong there. The polls have been pretty wrong. And I think you've said this on my KPFT show before, how some of the polls have actually been behaving. I think it was either you or Max that was mentioning how the polls have been behaving over the last several cycles. So that is my concern. I hope you're right. I hope that that what happened out there in the UK doesn't come back and it isn't something that foretells what could happen here. I hope you're right, John.
Well, I feel confident. I mean, right now, I mean, he's going to continue all of his racist appeal, and I just think America is smarter. I mean, if you're looking for, actual numbers, I think it was the white vote was 61% in 2012.
Right.
And so he's trying to get it up to 63, 64%, and he thinks he can win that way. And, maybe he can in Ohio. I mean, maybe he can in Pennsylvania.
Right.
But, I mean, and those are the two scariest states right now. But, again, that Quinnipiac poll, was off so much. I mean, they're not sampling as many Democrats as it voted.
Right,
and,
right.
And also PPP, which I had a lot of respect for. They're still keeping their old model, which is an 80-20 model, 80 landline, 20 cell phone, and
that's crazy. Yeah.
Right, because you're getting older conservative people, and that you've got to change. I mean, there's definitely been a crisis in polling worldwide, and that crisis has revolved around technology. As
right.
more people, yeah, I mean, as more people, go ahead.
They simply don't know how to poll. How do you get that right mix with landlines, phone lines, and some people who are simply now they use Skype. They are not phone folks. They just use Skype. So, I mean, how do you really reach all these people? And you have to figure out what that mix is. And the problem is you're also shooting a moving target. So it's not easy.
Right. But, I mean, most of the polling in 2014, which was wrong, was because Democrats were saying they were going to turn out, and they didn't turn out.
Right.
But if you look at Real Clear Politics averages, 2 weeks before the polls, and they make an average. I mean, it is amazing how accurate the polling is. I mean, it is astounding. I mean, Nate Silver says that he got every poll right, every state right in 2008. Well, I mean, so did the average of polling on Real Clear Politics. And so, I mean, the closer you get to the election, I mean, there just really hasn't been an election in America where statewide polling is totally wrong. I mean, that's true. If it's within 2 points, it could 2 points. It could go either way, even 3 points. But it rarely does. It rarely does. I mean, I think Real Clear Politics was right on all 50 states in 2012, and they were right on all 50 states in 2008. And I don't know. I mean, maybe the polling will be as inaccurate this year. I hope it's not. But since there is a technology shift, and also the fact that you can't call random cell phone numbers now, and so a lot of the cell phone people that they call are actually sign up through the internet.
Right.
And so I mean, and the people who sign up on internet polls have a tendency to be either more extreme right or more extreme left. They're not necessarily centrist. I mean, they want their ideology, out there. That's why they're activists. And so they kind of take away from centrist polling. I mean, centrist candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I mean, I hope that it is right, and I hope that this continues. But I just don't have. I mean, I just don't think that Trump is going to be taken is going to win. I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, he's just too extreme. Now, if it was Kasich, I would be very worried because Kasich was actually up by 100 electoral votes.
Yeah.
And that's the strange thing. I mean, it's kind of like Social Security. When Obama wanted to cut it, the extreme right said no, we want to go even farther. And so and then the activists told them you can't do this. And so that was a big change. And so I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I think that there's America is smarter than that. But seeing Brexit is definitely sad, and in all these other countries in Europe want to get away too. But I can to a degree I can understand the idea that we were talking about this earlier about you should be in control over your own currency, and you shouldn't be taking direction from Angela Merkel telling you what your laws are, telling Greece you have to do this, you have to cut social services, you have to sell off part of the public sector. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, I totally disagree with that. And so, to me, there's a fine balance between having trading partners and having security agreements and having your own currency. I mean, to be honest with you, I would be happy if the EU would be eliminated. Now, I know that countries like Italy and Spain would hate that because they were struggling even more before the EU came in. I mean, to them,
the EU is sort of this body. Europe is, a lot of people look at the wars in the Middle East or the wars in Africa and think, oh, how bad they are or whatever. They don't take into consideration that, you can take a look at those wars and, yeah, they are bad and a lot of people get killed sporadically out there. But the two world wars, I don't know if you saw Rachel Maddow last night when she went through those numbers with World War I and World War II and the constant wars that you've had between countries in Europe. That's not a panacea. And one of the things that the European Union actually does is it keeps people, because they are legally connected, it's difficult for one of them to go ahead and just have a war with another one. And, these were people that were pretty violent against each other. So, we should look at it as if, oh, these are the civilized ones, because they were not so civilized during World War I and during World War II. Let's be real. One of the reasons behind the European Union is, again, for stability. But we're coming close to the end of the show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Delroy 15 seconds to give us a closeout, a final thought from you, Delroy. Come on in.
All right. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Much appreciated. Everybody's got their own opinions. So I'm going to stick to mine. And you are right about Europe in terms of everybody being together, and we should be unified, but unfortunately it is what it is. But I hope you lot do what you need to do over there, and hope things go well over at your elections, which are coming soon.
Thank you very much, Delroy. And look, I understand that you've done your research or whatever. I like to say things like, yes, everybody have their own opinions, but there's just one set of facts, because facts are absolute. So listen to what other people have to say and do your research based also on what other people have to change. I am not the type that will tell individuals that you're simply and absolutely wrong and therefore I won't talk to you. What I tell folks like yourself, I think some of what you had to say was misguided. I honestly believe that John said some of those, squared on some of those issues. What I ask you as a listener, Delroy, is to go back to the internet, not only on those places where you got those pieces of information, but elsewhere. Hell, in fact, if you can find John on the internet, maybe the two of you should connect and have some civil conversations that will get folks in a good spot. But thank you very much for having called in, Delroy. Okay, let's go to 620, my friend John. Not John. 620. Come on in. Okay, John, come on in. Give me a final thought.
Okay, this is Thomas Piketty, when he wrote his book, Capital in the 21st Century, was talking about how the world is going to have to face climate change, and what a lot of long-term projections are for the economy is that growth rates in the Western world will be slow because, there's so much globalization, and countries like China, India, various other countries, smaller countries, are gaining. And so, Western countries will have to to adjust to the fact that there will be slower growth. And the way that we will adjust is not to value money so much and not to value greed so much and make a more equitable society. And I think that's what Bernie Sanders was talking about, and I think that's what a lot of the people in the Scandinavian countries already have in place, and that's what I'm hoping is going to be put in place. Because even if your economy is struggling, you can if you have a good government that actually cares about the people, the poor, struggling people. That's what's important. Everybody would like to see great growth like it was from the 50s to the 70s. Right. But I don't know if that's going to come again. And we have to live our lives, be kind to each other, accept that the climate change is real, and not value money so much as we value loving each other.
Well said, John. It couldn't have been said any better. Jack, give me 15 seconds, Jack.
Well, that wasn't glad to be with you, but let me see.
That's okay, Jack.
He's dangerous, and then he should be defeated, and defeated badly.
Thank you very much for your thoughts, Jack. Now, folks, I love, John, I just love the ending that you just provided us. I want to just expand on that a bit. I don't know if you remember that movie from a while back I think it was called Wall Street. I don't remember who the actor was in the, I know the actor, I just don't remember his name right now. But it isn't true that most humans are just simply greedy folks that just want to take it all. That's not who we are. That's who they tell us we are. And that's who they tell us we should emulate or we should believe. This is something that is taught. Most human beings, whether Americans, British, or otherwise, are good people. I've run across thousands of people, and most people are good people. We can't allow these people, meaning those who are many who are governing us today, to let us fall under the pretense that somehow being greedy, being selfish is a normal human state of being. It is not. And what we have to do, as John actually alluded to, is bring out more of our own humanity, because if we do that, we can be better. And one last thing that I want to mention has to do with, John said, there used to be good roads, etc., in the 50s. And you don't know if we're going to get there again. An economy is a man-made entity. There are a lot of folks out of work, and there are a lot of things need to be done. The reason, there is a specific reason why we can't bring all the people that need work and all to where all the things need to be done, and that is a flawed economic system. That means we have a flawed economic system. An economic system is not divine. An economic system is man-made. It is proven now that the way it's done right now has failed. We have to get the wherewithal, we have to get the courage to change to an economic system that can do that. And by the way, that's what my next book is about. I'm now a Bernie Sanders delegate going to Philly. We're going to be talking to a whole lot of those people over there in the movement as well about this stuff. For those of you who are on Facebook, go visit my page as well. We're raising funds to go to Philadelphia. Please be a part of it. We're coming back, and we're going to keep the movement going. So be a part of Politics Done Right. Be a part of the family. This is Egberto Willies. I'm closing the show on one note. Let's be what we were meant to be. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for giving me this time with you.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES, that is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.